Hello everyone and welcome back to Clark Trending. Okay, I need you to sit down for this one, because what just dropped in the last 48 hours is not just a sponsorship announcement. This is a seismic shift in how the world sees women's athletes, and the reactions, are already splitting the basketball world right down the middle. Caitlin Clark just signed with Ferrari. Not a social media post. Not a one-off appearance. A full global ambassadorship with one of the most exclusive luxury brands on the planet. And Sophie Cunningham? She had something to say about it, and let me tell you, the way she said it has people talking almost as much as the deal itself. If you love Caitlin Clark, drop CC 100% love in the comments right now, and please, stay until the end of this one, because there's a layer to this story that nobody is connecting yet. Before we get into it, quick favor, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, you are literally in the 90% of viewers who watch our videos without subscribing. Just tap the button, it's free, it takes half a second, and it helps us keep bringing you this stuff. Alright, let's get into it. So here's what we know. According to multiple reports confirmed by Ferrari's own communications team, Caitlin Clark has been named a global brand ambassador for the Scuderia Ferrari lifestyle division. We're talking apparel campaigns, Formula One paddock appearances, and, this is the part that made my jaw drop, a custom design collaboration line. Now, Ferrari doesn't do this. This is a brand that has historically partnered with Formula One drivers, a handful of footballers, maybe a top-tier tennis player. They do not sign team sport athletes from North American leagues. That wall just broke. Clark's agent reportedly said, and I'm paraphrasing from a source close to the negotiations. This wasn't about finding the biggest check. Caitlin wanted a partner whose standard matched hers. Ferrari came to us, not the other way around. Let that sit for a second. Ferrari pursued her. Now let's rewind for a second, because this doesn't land out of thin air. Remember back in March when Clark showed up to All-Star Weekend wearing that custom Italian leather jacket, and the internet lost its collective mind? There were photos with Ferrari executives at a charity gala in Indianapolis that people dismissed as a coincidence. Those weren't coincidences. Those were meetings. That's the kind of detail that causes people to ask uncomfortable questions about how long this was in motion, and who else knew. And that brings us to Sophie Cunningham, because her response is where this whole thing shifts from a business story into something much more personal. Cunningham posted a 15-second video to her Instagram story. No caption, no tags, just her sitting in her car, looking directly at the camera, and saying, quote, "I'm just so, genuinely happy for her. People don't understand how hard she works off the court. They really don't. And, you know what? This is good for everybody. Every single one of us." End quote. Then she paused, shook her head slowly, smiled, and the clip ended. Now here's what I need you to pay attention to. That pause. That head shake. Watch it again if you haven't. That wasn't scripted. Sophie Cunningham has been one of the most polarizing figures in the Caitlin Clark conversation for 2 years running. She's been cast as a villain, as an agitator, as someone who resents Clark's rise. And in 15 seconds, without any media coaching, without a PR team's polish, she just punctured that entire narrative. She didn't say, "Good for the league." She said, "Good for everybody. Every single one of us." That's specific. That's a player who understands that a rising tide actually does lift other boats, and is tired of pretending otherwise for the cameras. But here's where things get even more interesting. Not everyone felt the same way. ESPN analyst and former player Chini Ogwumike offered a more measured take on her podcast, saying, quote, "I think it's phenomenal for visibility. I do. But I also think, we have to be honest that when one player is operating in the Ferrari space and the rest of the league is fighting for regional car dealership spots, the gap tells a story about investment priorities. That's a fair point, and honestly, it's a brave one. She's naming the disparity without blaming Clark for it, which is a needle very few people in that media ecosystem are willing to thread. Meanwhile, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert released a short statement calling the deal a landmark moment for the WNBA and women's sports broadly. But, and here's what most people missed, she didn't name Clark. Read that statement again. It says, a WNBA athlete. Not Caitlin Clark. That kind of institutional distance from your single biggest commercial asset is not accidental. That's a communications team making a deliberate choice about how close the league's official voice stands to one player's individual brand. So what does that tell you? Now I want to take a second here for a mid-video ask. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, smash that like button. It genuinely changes how many people see this video, and it lets me know you want more of this kind of deep analysis. Alright, let's keep going. Okay, let's zoom out and really break down what's happening here, because the real story isn't the deal itself. It's what the deal reveals about where power actually lives right now. Ferrari doesn't need the WNBA. They need Caitlin Clark. That distinction matters enormously. When a brand of that magnitude bypasses the league entirely and goes directly to the player, it tells every other corporation watching that the individual has surpassed the institution as the unit of value. Think about what that means for the next television rights negotiation. The league walks into that room needing to prove its collective worth, and every network executive across the table already knows that one human being commands Ferrari-level attention independently. That's not a negotiating strength for the league. That's a vulnerability dressed up as a headline. Now some people might say this is exactly how it worked with Michael Jordan and Nike, and the NBA survived just fine. But here's why the comparison doesn't hold up cleanly. The NBA had Magic, Bird, Hakeem, Barkley, and Shaq all operating as independent commercial forces simultaneously. The economic weight was distributed. What we're seeing in the WNBA right now is concentration, not distribution. One player is operating 3 tiers above the next highest earner in the league. The NFL dealt with something structurally similar when Patrick Mahomes' off-field portfolio began dwarfing entire franchise marketing budgets, and the league responded by aggressively building up secondary stars through media access rules and scheduling. The WNBA hasn't made that counter move yet, and the longer they wait, the wider the gap becomes. Here's my prediction based on everything I'm tracking. Within the next 18 months, Clark's off-court earnings will force a formal policy conversation inside the league's board of governors about individual player marketing rights, revenue sharing from personal endorsements, and whether the league needs a luxury tier player classification that simply doesn't exist yet. That's the key domino. Because once that conversation starts, it restructures the relationship between every franchise, every player, and every dollar flowing through the system. So where does that leave us? A 24-year-old just became the first women's basketball player to partner with one of the most exclusive brands in human history. A former rival just publicly declared it a win for everyone. The league's own commissioner couldn't quite bring herself to say the name. And somewhere in a boardroom, people are quietly realizing that the future of this league doesn't run through a television contract or a franchise expansion vote. It runs through one person's willingness to keep showing up. And right now, she's showing up in a Ferrari. I'll see you in the next one.